This message you'll read about about 2% has an interesting study out that was published yesterday, the day before, about enrollment, high school and school enrollment, K through 12.
Oh, really?
And they look at Lexington, DV, Bucks County,
Yeah,
and
there are declines everywhere. Or what's,
something. Yeah, pretty good decline.
huh, that's interesting. More homeschoolers or?
Significant number of homeschoolers and just the birth rate.
As well, yeah.
People leaving like not at place below.
With that too, yeah, right.
And that's well 2%.
Demographics just in the world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lexington City Council for Thursday, January 18th. Thank you all for being here. Before I call the meeting to order, I would invite anyone who would like to speak to council tonight. There's a sign-up sheet over here and invite you to sign up. And with that business, I would like to call the meeting to order. And first item of business, if you all will please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. And thank you for braving the cold night and joining us this evening. Next item is consideration of the agenda. I'm not aware of any additions or changes to the agenda. Unless there's an objection, we will approve the agenda as presented. It is approved. We'll move directly into presentations, and I'll invite Caroline Alexander with ARB to come forward for the annual report. Caroline, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us to come and speak about the year that we've had over at the Architecture Review Board for the City of Lexington. We've had a busy year, actually. We had 18 regular meetings and reviewed 39 certificates of appropriateness. These applications are part of your, I think, part of your packet for tonight. You will see that any of these in general that approvals, yes and no's. And then if you really look into it, most of the people that received a no came back and we worked through to come to consensus. So that's something we're very proud of. We're really happy and continue to be really pleased with how well the historic district design guidelines have been received and followed in general by all the applications that we have. So again, we encourage the public to view this important resource on the Lexington website. These provide the community with a better understanding of what should occur in the historic district and make our decisions less subjective. And truly, these are guidelines. These are not rules. These are something that we just call out the beautiful features within the city of Lexington and try to use that as incentive for people to present something to us that might mirror or reflect positively with that in the environment. We're very appreciative of this guidelines and how the businesses have met these during the application process. And we feel that these really help preserve the historic fabric of our community while also improving the economic success of downtown Lexington, which we all know has fared very well, especially post-pandemic. We would like to thank our outgoing members, Robin LeBlanc and Elizabeth Teeth, for their service, and also welcome a new member, Ian Small. We've had one open position, and we're looking that possibly one of our alternates will move into that as a permanent position. So we're very pleased about that. So thank you to the City Council and thanks to Arnie's staff that helped make our meetings run so smoothly throughout the year. And I open this to any questions that you might have.
Members of council have questions. Hearing none. Caroline, thank you. And please take our appreciation back to the entire ARB board. One, for serving our citizens and businesses so well, but also working so smoothly with our staff to have full quorums at the meetings and to conduct the business at hand, and making so much positive progress. So
Yes,
thank
and
you.
I encourage the public and I encourage all of you to attend one of the meetings at any time. So thank you very much.
Very good. And thank you for bringing Phoebe. Glad you're with us, and hope the balance of the school year goes great.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we'd like to call Pat Bradley for the Planning Commission annual report. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here this evening. And while I realize this is a responsibility of the Planning Commission to submit a report, it's a duty I am glad to take on. Hopefully, you've had a chance to look at the report. And while it bears my name, I have nothing to do with the composition of this. I have to say it's a testament to the professionalism and hard work of Arnie Glazer and Kate Beard. And that's the sort of thing that makes it so fulfilling for me to be on the Planning Commission. You will see we were very busy this year with 21 regular meetings. We considered 20 applications for consideration and recommendations to pass on to you. We finished up early in the year, our new zoning for planned development and mixed use. We spent about 10 months working on use and design standards for accessory dwelling units, particularly for detached structures, which I think is something you're going to be working on tonight, and maybe that'll finally all be tied up. We also we had a joint work session with City Council, with you all, earlier in the year, where the Green Infrastructure Working Group was able to present its final report and recommendations. We appreciate City Council working with us, and this was one of those projects where the community input, the community support, the institutions whose people came together was really impressive, and the amount of work that they did really is a testament to how well I think the city has set things up for people to get involved. We worked on amending our bylaws for conflict of interest to bring them in line with the city council and with state law. We began a review of the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan, and you will see in the packet the implementation matrix. And again, looking at how many things have been accomplished and how they line up with the comprehensive plan is a good signal for how the city really has committed to using the comprehensive plan and not just keeping it on the shelf. And that's very heartening as well. In the new year, we will begin discussion and consideration of additional zoning amendments. We'll probably be looking at use and design standards for cottage housing, updated entrance corridor design standards, perhaps possible amendments to the subdivision ordinance to streamline approvals for simple boundary line adjustments. And as it says in the report, hopefully these will provide ample opportunities for public input and research on best practices. And that's one of the things, as I've already said, but how the community is involved in this, it makes things go so much easier when they are involved and people know what's going on, and they're great to work with. With all of that having been said, we would like to thank City Council. I'd like to thank especially Leslie Strawn, our council liaison. I don't know if it's a rule or a law that we have that, or whether it's just something we do that's a good thing to do. Is it a rule or a law?
Bylaws.
It's in the bylaws, and it's a great thing because it keeps us so connected with how things are running, and the wealth of knowledge and professionalism that Leslie brings is amazing. I'd like to thank immediate past Commission Chair Blake Chester, who finished up his term this year. Also, longtime Commission member Matt Tuckler, who had been chair and vice chair. I'd like to thank him. And it was great to welcome 4 new members, Shannon Spencer, Gladys Hopkins, John Eastwood, and Mary Stewart Harlow. We have a full complement of commissioners now, and that's a really great thing. I'd like to finish by, again, thanking Arnie and Kate for how they make things work and how they really make it a pleasure to be on the commission. I think those are the highlights. I don't know if you got a chance to read it yet, but it's a great document. Any questions for me?
You mentioned cottage housing.
Yes.
Have y'all started on that yet?
We have not started on that. I think we are waiting for an application that might be wanting to present some ideas on that. Is that about right? Then we'll take it up. Yes. So we haven't started that yet. That's on our to-do list in the year. Yeah.
Leslie.
I just want to thank Dr. Bradley. He's been chair several times and he runs a smooth meeting, and thank you for all your work on the plan.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. Okay.
Yes, we're very grateful to you and the entire commission, the folks that you mentioned that retired. I won't restate the names, but grateful for their commitment and service to our community. Reminded ARB and Planning Commission are unpaid. It is definitely a volunteer effort out of passion for our community to keep it the special place that it is. And with the change of membership ideas and the learning curve, helping educate the new folks. Very grateful to you and certainly to staff for making that a smooth transition so that we can better serve our community. So
Great,
thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for not making me present this in Latin. Like when I first applied to be on the commission, I was required to ask in Latin. So not this.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Arnie. Board of Zoning Appeals annual report, please.
I hope you don't mind. I just didn't have the heart to ask Mr. Giannini to show up this evening just to say the Board of Zoning Appeals held one meeting. They overturned one determination by the pesky zoning administrator. And that's all I have for a presentation.
Very good. Well, I'm disappointed that Mr. G is not with us, but I know he's making good use of his time not being here. So any questions for Arnie relative to that report? Excellent job. Thank you. Next is an introduction of Cheryl Wagner, the new Rockbridge Regional Tourism Director. Thank you for bringing your bodyguard, safely arriving, and welcome.
Thank you so much. I want to first thank Councilman Betts for being on the tourism board and all of that you do for us. And also for hiring me because you were on the hiring committee. So I thank you for that. I don't know if you've read the news Gazette, but I wanted to give you a little backstory here. I started working at the Lexington Visitor Center when I was 17, and I worked for Jean Clark then. So when I was in high school, and then when I got out of college, she hired me back. So I worked for her for 12 years. And then I realized she was probably never going to retire. And so Mr. Hallis took me to Stanton and hired me in Stanton. So, and I'm thankful for the time that I was there, but you don't know how good it is to be home and to promote the place you love. I commuted for those 16 years. I never left this area because I always planned to come back. And I'm just really thankful that I'm able to do that.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Members of council have any questions for Cheryl?
Yeah, I don't have an annual report because I've been here for 5 weeks.
Right.
Well, we're glad to have you as part of the team, Cheryl, and happy you're here with us in the Lexington, Rockbridge, Buena Vista area. And I'm sure we'll do great things as a team.
Yes, we will.
And I'll just offer an open invitation anytime you'd like to come to council to share opportunities, ideas, successes. We welcome your participation and interaction with council. Obviously, as Nick being our liaison with tourism, he keeps us plugged in on at each of our meetings, but hope that you'll come at any time. If you need anybody to help with the upcoming BMX event at the Horse Center or anything else, council, I'm sure, is at your disposal and willing to volunteer.
Yes, I'm sure. Did you all hear about the BMX event at the Horse Center?
Please elaborate on it. It is in my report, but I'm glad if you want to.
Okay, so it's February 9th and they wanted our local dignitaries to be there to welcome them, maybe say, and these are some other things you might want to do. What I have learned since then is that the tourism department worked very hard to get this group to come to the Horse Center. And as I told Councilman Friedman, when I was on the phone with them, they were actually looking at another indoor venue in Illinois. So we want to keep them. We want them to come back every year. So we would love for as many of you as possible that can come and welcome them on February 9th be there at 12:45 and the welcome is at 1:15.
Very good.
Okay.
Excellent. Keep us posted on other events. And thanks for staying at home and coming back.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
All right. And I'll bring my bodyguard.
Perfect. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes from January 4th, work session and regular meeting. They're in your packet unless there are any changes. Hearing none from council, unless there's an objection, we'll approve those as presented. They are approved. Next item is citizens' remarks and comments. We request prior notification be given to the city manager or mayor by individuals wishing to address the council, and public comments are always welcome. I ask that you sign up prior to our meeting, and you'll be recognized during the citizens' remarks section of the council agenda. During this agenda item, if you choose to speak, I ask that the following guidelines be followed. Ask that 1, you stand at the podium and for the record, state your name and let us know if you are a resident of Lexington, Virginia. Make your comments to the council as a whole. Be brief, state your position and provide facts. Number 4, provide written statements and or supporting materials to the clerk for distribution to the council and city manager. Debate is prohibited. And number 6, speak clearly as we want to hear what you have to say. Council will try to hear everyone who wishes to speak, and discussion generally is limited to 3 minutes. And at this time, I would like to invite anybody who would like to speak to city council. Don't think we had anyone that signed up. Is there anyone who would like to speak to council this evening? Ms. B, please come forward. Ms. B, if you will state your name for the record and affirm for us that you're a citizen of Lexington.
Beatrice Johnson, 205 Massey Street, Lexington. I am a resident of Lexington, have been for years. And one day I learned to follow directions and sign up. But then I have to think about if I want to. The only thing that I want to say is to thank Mr. Harrison, did I pronounce your name correctly? Anyway, for his work that he did with staying on getting that property straight on the corner of Massey and Randolph. We definitely appreciate it. It looks 100% better. If you haven't been by to see it, come and take a look. Again, thank you for all your help. And thank council for what you did, but mainly the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. B. Glad for you to be with us anytime, and you can come speak anytime, of course. And I have taken the opportunity to drive by a few times, a couple times while they were working on it. And then also after it was completed, and it is much cleaner lot, to be sure. Look forward to what the owners do with that in the future that will complement the neighborhood. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to council this evening? Hearing the dull roar of the air handler, we'll close the citizens' remarks and comments and go into the consent agenda and ask for council's consideration of 9.1.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second and a roll call vote. Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Unfinished business, a review of the amendment to the zoning ordinance to permit detached units.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we all recall, 2 hours of our time was spent last night reviewing the details of the ADU and how it interacts with the short-term rental ordinance. And based on the input from City Council, the city attorney and planning director will put together the ordinance language and publicize a public hearing, which we hope to have February 1st, so that can be brought before you, the ordinance itself, and you can then consider it. Now, if we happen to have a little extra time required for review or, putting the ordinance together, it might be February 15th, but we hope to have it ready February 1st, and it'll then be in your hands, and hopefully it's in the state that you'd like to see it.
Very good. Any questions of the city manager? Thank you all for making time last night. Dr. Bradley, sorry to disappoint you. We're not taking it up tonight, but work in progress. We're going to work to get it right. Next item are reports and commissions. Blue Ridge Resource Authority, Mr. Smith.
Blue Ridge Resource Authority adopted our 2024 meeting calendar for this year. I think that's the only official action that we took.
Very good. Main Street Lexington, Mr. Smith.
No report.
Planning Commission, Ms. Strawn.
Sure. The Planning Commission met on Thursday, January 11th. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to continue at our next meeting an entrance corridor certificate of appropriateness application by Lex Tanning VA for new signage at 637B Waddell Street. More information was requested from the applicant. The Planning Commission approved an application for a certificate of appropriateness for exterior improvements at 449 and 453 East Nelson Street and new signage at 449 East Nelson Street, where the new pack and mail is located. And then we began working on our annual zoning ordinance amendments.
Very good.
All I have, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Strawn? Hearing none. Regional Tourism, Mr. Betts.
Yes, sir. The meeting time for Regional Tourism Board has changed to 9 a.m. from 8:30 a.m., but the meeting will still be held on the third Wednesday of each month. The regional tourism budget is currently being worked on, and it is almost ready to be presented to the board. Let's see, there's a part of my report that I'm going to strike. We also discussed working to get more events that are held at the Horse Center advertised on the tourism website. Our new director of tourism has spoken with local businesses, including hotels, to introduce herself to them and discuss ideas that could help further promote regional tourism. On February 9th at 12:45 p.m., there will be a welcome event during the BMX event, and the organizers of the event would like Lexington City Council and the mayor to attend if possible.
Fantastic. Any questions for Mr. Betts? Raro, Mr. Ziegler.
The Finance Committee of Raro met on Tuesday, January 2nd to kind of discuss our budget. And we've got it in a good place, and I'm sure that'll be submitted on time to Jen Bell and the municipalities. And then the regular board meeting occurred the next day on the 3rd. And really, we're just in the throes of our winter sports and talking about registration for the spring sports. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Any questions for Mr. Ziegler? Threshold, Ms. Alexander.
No report. We're scheduled to meet on the 24th at 4 p.m. in City Hall, second floor.
Very good. And Maury Service Authority, Mr. Alligood.
Likewise, no report, but we're scheduled to meet next Tuesday at 5 o'clock in this room. And at that meeting, we expect to hear reports on the engineering report status for the wastewater projects. So public, welcome to attend and find out what's going to happen to your $60 million plus.
Thank you, Mr. Alligood. Any questions for Mr. Alligood? Hearing none, for my report, just a couple of items. First and foremost, delivered to you yesterday, an amendment to employment agreement for Jim as we've in pursuit of our new city manager. Jim has agreed to stay on, and the details of that are all public and given to everyone yesterday. I'd welcome council's consideration of the amendment to employment for Jim's employment.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment to Jim's employment contract as presented.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll just, before you vote, I know that all of council is very grateful to your graciousness and Deb's willingness to let you to continue to serve while we continue our search. It's a tremendous help and benefit to the city. Your services are greatly appreciated, as B indicated. It's great to hear from the public as such, and other folks I know have stopped you when we've been out in public. Thank you for the good service that you've provided to our city, and will continue to do so for the not too distant future. Roll call vote. Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jim. And please pass along our appreciations to Deb. Additionally, in my report, remind council, if you didn't check, there's another drop of applicants for the city manager in your Dropbox. I think there are 39 applicants that have been uploaded so far from the original 19 last week. And Ann Lewis had indicated that a couple that she was expecting to apply are yet to apply still. So the current crop doesn't include some that she had alerted to last week that she expects to apply. Wanted to give a big thank you to Miss Alexander for her capable and thoughtful introduction to Mayor Bottoms from Atlanta at the Martin Luther King celebration. If you weren't able to brave the snow and cold Monday night at Washington Lee, Miss Alexander represented the city extremely well, and it was an interesting and fun evening. Also, special thank you or loud thank you to Public Works for everyone being able to get out and about on Tuesday morning, and for our schools to continue on even though it was delayed. The Monday night about 8 o'clock, it didn't look like the streets were in very good shape, and by the morning they were in great shape. So thank you to Public Works, Patrick's team, for doing such a fine job with that. And lastly, had a citizen that contacted, curious to see an outline of sorts of what the dog park proposed would look like. And again, Patrick's team, if he hasn't already, is planning to put stakes or flags so folks can drive by McCorkle and see the proposed designated area. So keep an eye out for that. Of course, that public hearing will be February 1st. And with that, unless there are any questions from council.
I'll
Yes,
just
sir.
add to your kudos to Public Works, because I think something that we take for granted is that not only are the streets cleared, but sidewalks are cleared that the city is responsible for, but also the trash is still picked up. The city, the regular operations still occur. And so I think Public Works, I was thinking to myself, and I know Jim's going to mention this, but starting with the candlelight processional, the Public Works and fire and rescue and police, but Public Works starts getting stretched very thin around that time with the candlelight processional onward through gobble wobbles and jingle bell runs and just on through the holidays. The trash gets picked up, and just be appreciative. Throw a little bit of snow in there or a water pipe break, but just thanks to Public Works. So.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mr. Ziegler. And you remind me, also want to thank all the citizens for taking responsibility for the sidewalks. The city's made it abundantly clear you're responsible for the sidewalk in front of your home, and folks have responded and done a great job with that. Some folks need a little extra help, and proud to say he's certainly not looking for it, but our city manager scraped a few sidewalks for homes around the city. And so grateful for everyone helping their neighbors and keeping our city as vibrant as it is, everybody working together. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Take it away, Jim.
Between you and Councilmember Ziegler, you took half of my report, but I will echo the thanks for Public Works and Police and Fire, who are on standby in case we have incidents during those snow events. They all do a great job. And yes, I was very pleased to see how many of the sidewalks in town were cleared the same day as the snow fell. And so, that's the type of thing that really makes the community special and stand out, because we can keep those sidewalks available for our youngsters going to school, for people walking their dogs, anyone out for a walk that doesn't have to be out in the street, they can be on the sidewalk. And that was pretty impressive. There are a few who maybe didn't get the message, and we will take enforcement action if necessary to help solidify the understanding that they do have to be taken care of. But by and far, everyone responded wonderful, and I really do appreciate that. Appreciate the staff who's also helped out in that regard. I know everybody at this time of year is looking forward to seeing the budget, City Council, and some of the members of our community. I do want to say that it is undergoing the process it normally does. Next week, Finance Director Jen Bell and I will be meeting with all department heads to review the proposals that they brought before us for their budgets. Soon thereafter, February, as a matter of fact, we'll bring to you the capital investment plan. You'll have a couple of meetings or opportunities to review that. And obviously, at some point in time, we hope it will be approved. I will comment that even though it's very preliminary, it does look like revenues for the coming year, or even in this current year, are slowing. That is, revenue growth is slowing a bit, and expenses are catching up with revenues. We've probably all seen that trend, and I think that will make some difference in the coming budget. It won't be as easy to adopt the budget and include all that we'd like to see included, but city staff and I will bring to you a balanced budget, and we do hope to do so and take into account the priorities, or the majority of the priorities that you've outlined and you'd like to see included in the budget. So it'll take us a few more months to get everything in front of you, but we are on task and on schedule. So I did want to congratulate again Public Works. Our Director, Patrick Madigan, and his staff just received notification of a $211,263 Stormwater Local Assistance Fund grant that will be used to renovate the retention basin at the bottom of White Street and the Woods Creek Park area. That retention basin is still functional at a certain level, but it can be improved dramatically. And with the assistance of this grant from the state, that will undergo a complete rehabilitation, so it does function at a higher level to retain stormwater and release it slowly into the creek, also to retain sediments and other materials off of the street and contaminants off of our city streets. So it's good work for Public Works. It's about a $60,000 local match, but the $211,000 plus coming from the state is what will really allow us to make that project happen. Public Works made it happen by getting that grant. And a trifecta of sorts that I'd like to mention is that I had a letter from the Rockbridge Christmas Baskets effort thanking the city, specifically Public Works, for, quote, the tremendous amount of help they gave us during the 76th year of Christmas basket distribution in the community. And so I just say again how good our staff is and what the great work they do in our community for the entire community. Just a note, the Central Shenandoah Health District has a new director, Dr. Allison Baracco, who is replacing the retired director, Laura Cornegay. Everyone knows that our local Washington Lee University puts on a mock convention when the presidential elections occur. And this year that election, or that mock convention, will be Friday, February 9th in the morning. And planning for the event has gone very smoothly, with police, fire, and Public Works working with the student planning team to make that event occur. And I understand the student team is hopeful that no winter activities occur that we just saw over the last few days. Few updates in the police department. The leadership team of the department has been meeting to plan appointments for the local drug task force team and SWAT. And preliminary review of possible promotions are also be considered by that leadership team. Both police department and fire department provided security and support for the CARES parade and the Sons of Confederate Veterans parade this past weekend. Officers of the department conducted over 30 hours of foot patrol throughout the community last week. Chief Green participated in the state maternal mortality review board meeting via Zoom. She's a member of that state board. In the fire department, the department hosted the Regional Fire Officer 1 class. On the 16th, the department had 15 calls that day. The average is 9 per day. 14 of those calls were EMS calls, and of those 14, 5 were in Buena Vista. So they were very active. C-Shift handled those all professionally and in stride, and were able to serve the entire community, not only Lexington, but our neighbors, Rockbridge County and Buena Vista, in their time of need, in the citizens' time of need. Chief Dickerson attended the regular Regional Fire and Rescue Association meeting, and that is the end of my report. Happy to take any questions from City Council.
Have more of the checks come in for the meals tax?
Jen Bell is on vacation this week, so I did not inquire about that. I've got to believe some have, but I don't know any specifics. Thanks. I can find out and get that back to you. Appreciate it.
Question, Jim, do you know if the work for the stormwater retention basin will be done in-house, or is that something that we will hire out? I mean, if you don't know, that's fine. I was just wondering.
For the amount of the project cost, I imagine that will be contracted
Okay.
out. And
Just
then in the sophistication of the work that's going to be actually
understood.
required.
I know our team was able to take on the work at Morris Creek Dam a couple years ago, in-house, and I just wasn't sure if that was something that we were able to do.
I'll check, but I'm relatively
Fine.
certain that's not the case.
Understood.
Very good. Any other questions for the city manager? City attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, I think last time at our last meeting, I mentioned working on a couple of contracts. One of those was a mass appraisal software contracts for the commissioner, and that has now been executed. Two other contracts I've been working on just to keep everyone in the loop. The DSS contract with Thompson and Litton. We've shared our edits to their form contract with them, and we're waiting on their response. So hopefully that'll be concluded in short order. And got around to some edits to an electronic payment contract for the treasurer. And we have now shared our edits to that contract with the contracting agency. So hopefully that one will be wrapped up soon. So those are some of the contracts I've been working on. Obviously, the last couple of weeks, been working on some ADU issues as well. So happy to answer any questions about what's going on. Yes, sir.
I'm curious about the value of the contract for the Commissioner of Revenue.
The mass appraisal contract, I'd have to pull it out and take a look at it. And I'm happy to do that, let you know.
Okay.
I just don't recall off the top of my head. We got it back today, but we sent it to them a couple weeks ago, and I just don't remember all the details.
Other questions for the city attorney? Hearing none, next item on our agenda is new business. 15.1 review of a draft policy on government speech from city-owned light posts. And it's not etched in stone by any means, but it's very good practice for city council to review proposed changes or policies, have it sit, and then have the potential, if they're not significant changes, to be able to approve it at the next meeting. Just remind members of the public that that's our process. We try and be thorough and meticulous in our review, and also in our voting to change policies. And with that, I will call on Jim to introduce the topic.
I'll try and be brief. You've seen the briefing before you, and as the mayor noted, we do have a policy in place currently that governs what type of messaging is put on our city light posts. And of course, these light posts are owned and maintained by the city for public uses, such as lighting the streets and sidewalks. We also hang banners and other seasonal decorations on those posts, as well as hanging planters and that type of thing to beautify our downtown as appropriate for our governmental activities. We have had inquiries, though, from interested parties or organizations about, could there be a messaging on our light posts from their organizations? And of course, the answer is no. However, our city attorney has reviewed some of the legal recent court procedures and some of the other language that's out there that maybe reflects on our policy, and we wanted to update the policy, bring it before you, this draft, for your consideration. And I just will let then our city attorney go through these through the language and any changes that have been made.
Thank you, Jim. The concept that is the driving force behind this policy is the concept of government speech. Courts over the last 10, 15 years have acknowledged and recognized that a government must be able to promote a program or espouse a policy in order to function. In other words, a government has the right to engage in speech from its own speech platforms. And that is what this policy tries to take advantage of, is the ability for the city to control its own message. And there's been a recent Supreme Court case. It was a 2022 case that involved flags in the city of Boston and the ability to hoist flags in front of the city hall there. And the Supreme Court stated, when the government wishes to state an opinion, to speak for the community, to formulate policies, or to implement programs, it naturally chooses what to say and what not to say. And that's what this policy tries to do for the city of Lexington. The city of Lexington owns these light posts, and if the city of Lexington, exercising complete dominion and control over the content of the speech from those fora, the city of Lexington can use them for whatever speech it chooses to engage in. The key is control, dominion, and control. You must decide as city council, or through your designated agent, the city manager, what messages may be conveyed. And that's what we've tried to do in this policy, is articulate what city's council's preferred messages are. The policy, the first page of what you have is the resolution that sets the predicate for the policy. But the policy itself begins by clearly stating that these light posts are for the exclusive expression of the city's government speech, and that only the government's messages and sentiments can be spoken from those or expressed from those light posts. The city manager is responsible for administering the policy unless city council gives a directive. The policy contains some of those directives. For example, city council, if it adopts this policy, and of course we can amend any of this, is articulating certain times and certain flags that can be flown from those light posts. The paragraph 6 lists some flags of interests. Paragraph 7 lists some particular dates of interest. It is important to note that the flags are not chosen by third parties. The flags are not chosen by private entities. The flags that are on this list are the flags you select using your control of your own property. So if you want to take some of these off or add some more, that's completely up to you. This is staff's effort to come up with a list that we thought would be of interest to you. We did include in paragraph 9 of the policy the ability to put some wayfinding signage on the posts as well. Don't know that that really is necessary. Government speech would likely cover that anyways, much like you can put a speed limit sign or much like you can put a no parking sign. But out of an abundance of caution, we decided to include that as well after we talked out some ways the city through its messaging might want to use wayfinding on those light posts. So that's the gist of the policy. The paragraph 13, the last one, authorizes the city manager to remove non-conforming signs, non-conforming wayfinding signs, or non-conforming placards that may be posted on the light posts. That's the policy. I know everyone's had a chance to see it and read it and think about it. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jeremy. Members of council, questions? Mr. Ziegler.
Two questions initially. We're focused on light posts. Should we be putting in this signposts? Because we also have numerous signposts on all of our streets. And sometimes, for example, the farmer's market, if we allow that to be a form of government speech, they put a bungee corded sign across. If they happen to bungee cord that sign to a signpost, if we should cover ourselves with that.
Well, I would think that is a sign that has been installed in violation of the city's the city owns the property, right? It's city owned property. People just don't have a right to put things on your property. So the city manager as a police function would have the ability to remove that sign if you wanted. If you want it, if the city, and there's two different things here. If the city wants to put its own signs up, there are some things which I think clearly fall within the police power, the speed limit signs, the signs that you have up now. If you're going to expand that into other areas, the value of a policy like this is it clearly sets out that it is government speech and doesn't open a public forum for private entities. Now, if you want to allow private entities to put signs on those posts, I think that creates issues you probably don't want to go
So
into.
I'm not advocating to go down that path. What I'm highlighting is if the city believes that we would like to speak on behalf of the farmers market and have a sign where they've historically had a sign affixed to a signpost, should this policy cover signposts? Additionally, if we would like to have on one of our signposts, if on behalf of the city of Lexington, we would like to speak to point where carriage rides might be, or the tourism office might be. Those are not always on light posts. Those are on signposts. And so that's where I'm just kind of why we wouldn't say we own the light posts, we own the signposts, and we control that speech on both of those posts that are already used for government speech, and we'd like to retain that right.
And I think some of that might be covered under this police power I'm talking about, but you certainly could, for clarity, articulate that. The thing I would be concerned about is I don't think you have an obligation to articulate everything from which you will express government speech. There is some history with the light posts, and I think that necessitates a clear articulated policy for the light posts.
Okay.
I just want to make reference to one of the lines in here where it says, whereas city council previously closed any public forum that existed on the flag standards affixed to the light posts by ordinance adopted September 2011. So just to clarify, basically, the forum is closed currently.
Yes, sir. And that language comes from an opinion that stood for that proposition, a court opinion.
And so if we were to maintain our current policies, it would still be closed.
Yes. And the intent of this policy is to keep it closed. It
Right.
remains closed.
Sure.
But yes, I mean, if you stayed doing the exact same thing you're doing now, it would remain closed as well. Absolutely.
Thank you.
What could happen to reopen it?
You would have to allow private parties to use the form. You would say, okay, some random third party can do whatever they want to on your light post. That's why paragraph 13 authorizes Jim to remove anything that's not this council's or a future council's expression.
And currently, there's no way for third parties
Correct.
to do anything.
Correct. And again, the intent of this policy is that it does not create a way for third parties. There's no asking for permission or permit process. It's different than even that Boston case that I was telling you about, where they did have it. And there's a line from the case which talks about the boundary between government speech and private expression can blur if private entities have a role in establishing government speech. I've tried to take that role out here and say this is city council's decision purely as to what city council wants to put on those light posts. Nobody else has a say. Nobody else can come and ask. It doesn't allow that avenue. Again, that's the key of government speech, is that dominion and control being exercised by this body. Thank you.
Jeremy, along those lines, conceptually, let's say my friends at the Moose Lodge want to approach and want to open up the conversation.
Mhm.
It's incumbent upon council to say, yes, we'll entertain that, or no, it stays closed. It's been closed. We don't intend to open it. So anybody who would come and say, we'd like you to open it, we're not obligated to do so.
Oh, 100%. You're absolutely not obligated to do it. As you've said earlier tonight, you have a public comment session. I mean, we wouldn't stop somebody for coming and asking. And I can't say that city council could not in the future expand or contract the list. They certainly can, but it's got to be your decision that you're making what expression you want to make from or articulate from those posts.
So a future council could allow private speech and open it up.
They could. I would certainly discourage that. I think more likely a future council could expand or contract what the council is putting on those licenses. That would, within the government speech parameters, by controlling it. But maybe they decide they do want to put up the Moose Lodge flag at some point. But again, that's got to be city council's decision. It can't be anybody else's decision.
Right.
And honestly, that's why there's no permitting process or anything. It's because there is no government speech. The speech of this body, it's not the speech of any private.
And the mechanics of that would be, just not to pick on any organization. So I'll just say, organization A, that if organization A wanted to put up their flag, we would be the ones that are putting it up on behalf of the city. It's government speech.
Organization A doesn't have a say.
So we would be, the city of Lexington would be the ones acquiring, using taxpayer dollars, flags of organization A. They wouldn't say, we'll give you all the flags and you put them up. We would say, no, we have to acquire the flags with our own money
I certainly
and put
think
them
you
up.
must own the flag.
Right. So,
Because remember, as I said, the lines can blur. So I think you should own the flag.
But does that mean we have to purchase them? We could,
I
we
think they
could accept
probably
them.
be donated
Yeah,
by
right.
a third party, but I think you have to own them. You have to put them up. You have to
Okay.
take them down, city forces, and on the city timeline and the city schedule.
And to that point, this could cost further government resources to implement this policy.
I have to say, I'm glad to hear about the Boston case and that the Supreme Court said that the governing body has the ability to speak for the community, and I love the list of options we have. It'd be nice to celebrate good things happening in our community, at our high school and at our local colleges. And I'm very pleased with the way the ordinance, the resolution looks right now. So be interested in hearing public opinion, but I think it looks great.
I personally am not in favor of changing the current status quo.
And as Nick mentioned and asked earlier, if you don't change the status quo, nothing opens, and then you continue to use for the national flag and the flag that you are.
But staying in the status quo doesn't protect us any more than not doing. I mean, that doesn't help us any. It really.
I mean, I think you could still have the same people could still come and ask. You'd still have a policy. I mean, but then you would still say no.
Right.
So I mean, I think either way, you're in a good legal position.
And Marilyn's question about a future council could open it. This council could open it. I mean, any council could open it. So, and so we are not opening it, to be clear, we are modifying.
Your use of it.
Exactly.
The
So,
city's use.
so we are not opening it.
And we're not making it any easier for a future council to open it.
Correct. If the, and welcome any more questions, but from a progression standpoint, this being a draft policy, would there need to be a public hearing on this? This is just council's work.
Council's, yes, exactly.
So if there's no objection, it could come at the February 1st or February 15th. Do it February 15th, gives a little more time for people to respond and be aware of it. But we'll plan for it to come back on council's for council's consideration at a future meeting. So, any other questions, observations, declarations, inspirations, meditations? Go ahead.
I just want to say I feel a little bit better than I did in the previous conversation about this, but it still makes me nervous that we're going down this path. We went through too much in 2011 and 12.
And that's my thought as well, looking at the past history. Not saying there's anything wrong with this ordinance, but there's not anything wrong now. So that's why I'm in favor of the status quo. Nothing wrong with this ordinance necessarily. I just don't see anything wrong with keeping the status quo either.
Nitpicking policy, not ordinance.
Resolution. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Mr. Smith.
I'll echo what Marilyn just said. That was a extremely challenging and difficult struggle that we had to go through to resolve a sensitive situation. One of the harder parts of that decision I wrestled with was the sacrificing of the flags that we had been able to, or had been flown before. And it's helpful to see progress and the possibility of reinstituting, celebrating our community as a whole. So I'm hopeful.
And Mr. Smith, I won't belabor the point. I think that comes right out of that quote from the shirt left case. And it talks about government wishing to speak for the community. And I think that's what we're talking about here, trying to take advantage.
It's like I'd read it, but I didn't.
That's the one positive. I am not really looking forward to seeing other things up there other than flags and other celebratory things, directional stuff. I think we have a glut of signage. Well,
And under this policy, this body can direct the city manager what to put on and not put. You have absolute control.
So if this policy is adopted and things go awry for one reason or another, we still have the authority to rescind the policy and say, we're going back to square one because it didn't work out for whatever reason.
There's another quote in that same case that talks about the ability to change policies. So yes, you could do that.
Thank you.
So you don't see any kind of loophole that could open 2011 back up again? And I need a promise.
I can't make a promise.
That's why we should go with the status quo.
What does the status quo do that this doesn't?
We just don't add any more flags than we already have, than the American flag. We leave the forum closed. There's no problem right now. I'm not saying there will be a problem if we adopt this. I just
So
I
we
just
should,
don't, I just think that I just don't think this is necessary.
right,
That's as
the
clear as I can
Supreme
be.
Court case doesn't give you enough, you don't feel comfortable following the Supreme Court case that gives us the right to do this.
Well, it's government speech and I don't feel the need that we need. I don't feel we need to do this. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, just for everyone's knowledge, were you the attorney during the previous flag case?
The 2011
Right.
case that Marilyn's talking about, yes.
So you have lots of experience with this.
I was riding along with Chuck and Marilyn in that process.
Very good. Well, thank you for the work to bring this draft policy forward and for educating council and obviously as it gets reported, our community on government speech and the responsibilities that this council has working into the future. Unless there are any other questions, we have no closed meeting scheduled. And I'm not aware of anything else for the good of the cause. We'll finish up a little quicker than we did with our ADU discussion. But thank you all very much, and we will stand adjourned.